everybody. Good to see you. We welcome you to our series of video of Educatiooon 3000, Education with 3 O's. I am Noemi Paimar, the founder of Education 3000. Hello, Dave.
Hi, Naomi. Hi to all our viewers. And if you've been viewing through the entire series, you'll know this is the 25th video, the last video in our series. So thank you if you've been watching. Also, thank you if you're tuning in for the first time. And you can check out all of the other videos on our YouTube channel. So this is the last video. Maybe. It should be the last video.
Maybe we have a surprise.
Education 3000 Level 1 series called Co-Recreating Education. I'm David Fegan, the International English Program Coordinator at Education 3000. So let's get started on the last video. It's about young people, Naomi.
Yes, young people. Really, they deserve an entire video on them. And they are wonderful. And we wanted to show you all the different aspects and all the amazing personalities they do have these days. Young people. And remember, I have four children that they are grown up now. So I learned so much from them. You are not that old either, Davey.
No, relative, right? So something that we want to start by saying is,
yes,
love them the way they are. It can be difficult for parents. It can also be difficult for young people as well. To be comfortable with themselves, a lot of experimentation, sometimes confusion, but we want to focus again on the love them the way they are.
Yeah, and love myself the way I am as well. Definitely. And we try to make like the main profile, like the main, how do you say profile, psychology
profile. So
profile.
But by no means are we saying that young people just directly fit into these categories. This is just, you know, a general base to discuss a little bit some different characteristics of young people, some different personality types. So the first one we want to look at is extroverted young people, and their talents and skills are in the political, social areas. They're very good at questioning education, which sometimes is not interpreted as a skill, but as we're trying to sort of recreate education, we don't necessarily think that's a bad thing.
For instance, I know some kids, they say, Dad, I don't want to school. I don't want to school. I don't want to go to school, or I don't want to do my homework, or I question everything. And the parents call me and they say, oh my gosh, your kid is very wise because you have to transform education. Oh, I never saw like that as that way. So yes, they will do anything to question something that doesn't work anymore. You see what I mean?
Yeah, and some other skills include self-expression through the arts, through their ideals, through social issues, nature, and science.
Yeah.
And we've made this some other categories we want to look at. So we want to make a distinction or a contrast between when young people or extroverted young people feel comfortable with themselves. If they're extremely extroverted and they're comfortable with themselves, they might be viewed as charismatic and obviously quite extroverted in the good sense. Maybe if they're more mildly extroverted, they could, but they're comfortable with themselves, they might be perceived as charming, outgoing. So nice qualities, right?
Yeah, definitely. Extremely charismatic.
Mm-hmm. But on the other side of things, when they're not super comfortable with themselves or maybe in a bad place, this type or children or young people who are extroverted might be perceived as aggressive, destructive, and self-destructive, associated with drug use. They might be using a lot of drugs. And also we might see the mirror effect. So if they're extremely extroverted and not super comfortable with themselves, these are some of maybe the negative characteristics. If they're maybe a little bit more mildly extroverted, but still not feeling so good or not in a great place, they might be like a little bit overly focused on escapism, which we can see, you know, again, alcohol, drug use, partying.
Yeah, party.
Yeah, so we're not saying there's anything wrong with going to a party, but we're talking about like just trying to get out of reality, like taking it to an extreme.
Go every day.
And maybe then they're not in any education, employment, or any kind of training. So that expression neat. And so this profile, like we can see there's a wide range of how these young people can be perceived, for better, for worse. They might be labeled as hyperactive, or ADD or ADHD, very impulsive. They might be also labeled as dyslexic or bipolar or suicidal, depressed. So Naomi, how would you explain this wild kind of panorama here that we're looking at when we're looking at this personality type or profile?
Yeah, that's a tendency to put a label, and for their whole life, they will have these labels. And this is not the best approach, because it will put you in a box. Because sometimes they are very fast to go from aggressive to charismatic. I mean, they can go back very easily to the first column if you trust them, and they have these abilities. So it's better to trust them than to put constantly label and give drugs, because that will cut off the capacity to go back to the first column, you see? Mm-hmm. So we have to be very careful and maybe try to find a transition kind of psychology therapy where we understand better the profile and their real needs than give a drug and a label. Now, that's another subject, but it's a call to the psychologists to investigate, to research, and we should help each other with this new profile. It's extremely interesting. Like, you won't believe it, Dave. When I was little, I was ODD.
So they diagnosed you with ADD.
And that I'm so glad they didn't stick myself, and I can overcome all that. You have to be very careful.
And obviously, in my perception of you, Naomi, obviously, like you've grown into somebody who's very articulate, very intelligent. And so we can see that, as we mentioned before, please do not immediately assume that your child needs medication. They might just be more advanced in the education system that they're in.
Yeah, and remember, they're extremely fast. They might be bored. Sometimes they are sensitive, remember, so they can react like what we do is not correct. This word sometimes is cruel. So to honor this kind of reaction, see?
So before you immediately assume that the problem is with the child, make sure very carefully that the problem is not with the school or the curriculum or the style of education, because as we've mentioned throughout this whole series, we know that we need to recreate education together.
And your parents, we are so incredible. We want to change our children sometimes, or young people. I want to change you. This is something I'm going to almost beg you. First, change oneself. Mm-hmm. One day we had a mother, she came over and she wanted to see a doctor and nurse. And she was like that, my kid is so hyperactive, you can't believe it. I can't stand it. And she was always like that. And I said, oh my God, I'm wondering who is the hyperactive person in that case. So this is my call for you, parents, and to myself as well. And then see the other profile, which is quite the opposite.
Mm-hmm. So looking at introverted young people, some of their skills and talents include being able to express themselves through creativity in the arts, which is actually something they're a little bit similar, but then maybe looking at another sort of on the other side of things. So yeah, they're creative, but sometimes they might be creative in a more quieter way. So healers, they can really appreciate beauty. So they've got a good eye for things, very aesthetic kind of understanding of things. And when they're at their best, we can see they're very artistic, very creative, very sensitive, but in a good way, sensitive to themselves, to others, friendly and diplomatic. But when things are not going so well, they might be perceived as depressed, antisocial. In more severe cases, maybe they have psychiatric problems. They're extremely sensitive, maybe even desolate. So again, we can see these two extremes. And young people, like we've mentioned in this series of videos, they are more sensitive as well.
See, so the more sensitive you are, the most you can be unbalanced if the environment or if something happened to you. Mm-hmm. So sensitivity can be a great virtue or a great ability, but we have to be careful because sometimes you can't not having a good time with your great sensitivity. And this is something I see it over and over and over and over.
And some of the labels, as Naomi mentioned, sometimes young people are placed in labels or boxes, and that can affect them for a large part of their life or all their lives if they don't know how to deal with it. They might be categorized or labeled as autistic. Maybe Asperger's syndrome is related to them. Maybe we say, they're scared of school, or they're selective, or they're mute, they don't talk, or they have some sort of psychosis or severe emotional disturbance, which are pretty strong labels to put on someone, especially a young person.
And the selective mutism is like, sometimes they talk, if they have a good friend or somebody they really trust, they can talk all night long. But if they don't trust you, nothing. And that's annoying if you are the teacher or the parents. So maybe relax yourself and be more open and more relaxed. And one little piece of advice. If you see your children, sometimes I hear that they come back from school before 2020, or they come back from somewhere, university, and the first things, did you do your homework? Or the parents arrives late. Did you do your homework? What did you do today at school? Did you finish these things from yesterday? Did you tidy your room? And it's like a police questionnaire list, at least. So
it's almost
be
like
careful
nonviolent.
how you approach your loved one when you come back. Maybe you are tired, but please be aware of that.
Again, if that's the opposite of nonviolent communication, and you're not going to achieve the goal. So why even bother saying anything if you're going to talk like that? Difficult though. We all do it.
How did you feel today? How was it? Oh, this happened. And what did you feel about that? So go back to feelings and be very honest. Oh, today, my dear, I'm so tired. I'm exhausted. Or had a big fight in my job. I don't know. Be very honest, because they can scan you. They can almost read your feelings and sometimes your mind. So be honest, that's all. And loving parents, that's good. Loving teachers as well. Profile 3.
Yeah, so here, the young activist, and their skills and talents, social and geopolitical leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And when they're at their best, we can perceive them as they have like a high level of interpersonal intelligence. They might be very remarkable with their criterion, the way that they sort of look at the world, right?
Oh, yes. Extremely bright.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they're always right. Not sometimes. Usually they're always right. So it's the most annoying. They have so much criteria, so much ideas, solutions. The typical leader, but with this positive, beautiful energy.
And then on the other side, like if they're not in a good moment or a good place, we might perceive them as despots, tyrants, like really arrogant. And some of the labels we might put on them, that they're not well raised, they were spoiled, they're not educated, they don't know anything, because they like young activists. Sometimes they can be annoying for teachers who don't appreciate being questioned, or adults who don't want to be questioned all the time.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Or who don't like to be wrong. So sometimes, as well as teachers and adults, we need to put our ego aside and okay, like just because I'm an adult doesn't mean I'm right always.
That's a good idea to teach them no-violent communication and diplomacy. Like instead of saying, teacher, this is bad, or you are wrong, teachers, I found another solution. Just this kind of little diplomacy, we avoid a lot of problems with them. Okay, the fourth profile.
Young philosopher. So talents and skills.
So beautiful.
Really good advisors. So, like friends are always talking when they're, especially when they're teenagers and going through puberty and starting maybe to have relationships and stuff like that, and in life as well, of all ages, philosophers, doctors, politicians, healers. And we can see that when they're at their best, they're very comforting, empathetic, good listeners, natural thinkers. They're very spiritual. They're like the magnet type. What do we mean by that if you're a magnet type?
Yeah, it's like, this kind of person, they go somewhere and everybody's around them, or they attract people. They have this kind of charismatic energy.
Mm-hmm. And they're also
even the animals, they will go to them. It's amazing to see. And
they're also lateral thinkers, but if this type of personality is in a bad place, we might see that like they have a bit of an unstable personality. They can be kind of volatile as well. And some of the labels that might be put on them: schizophrenic, epileptic, psychotic. So very strong words there, Naomi.
Yeah. What do I mean by lateral thinkers? Like they will find easily solution A, B, C, D. Like you ask your child, do you want to go to the park or do you want to visit grandma? And they will say, Mom, let's go to the park with grandma and work together. I mean, they always find something different. And that means they are solution makers, solution people. Amazing personality, fascinating.
So they're problem solvers.
Summary.
Problem solvers. So
problem solvers. So sorry.
So a summary here, looking at the profile and the possible professions. So people who are, very extroverted. It could be good politicians, maybe good in the social sciences, education, scientists as well, general science, designers, artists, or in the field of communication, where we require an outgoing personality. Introverts as well, though, can be good communicators. They can be very innovative as well. Scientists, technicians, computer science, therapists, doctors, farmers as well. This young activist profile we saw might be, might represent a new kind of leader, again, social sciences, languages as well. And this kind of the last one that we looked at, the young philosopher. So possible professions include doctor or spiritual expert, philosophers, writers, filmmakers. But we, like we said at the beginning of this, we want to make it clear that like these are just some general categories to sort of start to look at the topic, to start discussing it. We could look at this much more in depth, and not everyone fits in only one category. So we're definitely not saying that we want to put children or young people in boxes or categories, nothing like that. These are sort of, attributes associated to different profiles, and different people will probably have a different mix of these. They might have a tendency towards one or the other, but they might have a complete mix of all four. So this is why it is very difficult sometimes to understand young people, right, Naomi?
Yes. We have two things here. They can be a little bit of everything, or they can move from one to the other. Like, for instance, you have your child, 10 years old, is like the leader of the neighborhood, always organizing games and bicycle trip, like the typical very active kid with a lot of charisma. And then he's 12 and he wants to meditate, he wants to learn, I don't know, he wants to do video games, and the social life is cut off and he wants something else, know himself or herself. But then let's say he's 18 years old and he's the leader of the university, and he will go in the street and march, and all of a sudden, he's like a social leader. And then he's 21 and he wants to go to India and learn Sanskrit and learn meditation and learn transcendental, I don't know what, and make a movie on who I am. Or where can I find my soul? I don't know, things like that. And then be the advisor of the Ministry of Education or the Ministry of Environment. So they will switch. And as well, they will switch from balance and unbalance, the two columns we saw. And they can go fast from one to the other. And at the top of all, and that's why it's so hard to understand. They can be profile extrovert and introvert at the same time. How can it be? I mean, even the multiple intelligent, they don't understand how you can be extrovert and introvert at the same time. So that's why it's quite difficult to understand them and for themselves to understand themselves. You see? Sorry,
No. I apologize because I was interrupting you, but I just wanted to sort of support your point that looking at ourselves. So Naomi, you can probably associate with all these different profiles, because now that we're adults as well, I mean, sometimes I feel extroverted, other times I feel introverted. Maybe sometimes I feel a little bit of this activist streak, but not always. I'm not claiming to be a great activist. Philosopher, sometimes being reflective as well. So you know, sometimes we have a marriage of all these. I imagine a lot of people would probably say that at different points during the day, during the week, during their life, these qualities from each profile is present.
Yes. It's a very complex bunch of personality in one person. But that's amazing as well. That's why they are so fascinating as well. And for me, I think it's a new generation. My generation was more simple. No, we have to study, go to work. No, it's so rich, and they will question everything on the top of all. So, what to do?
And as we just mentioned, because it's very difficult to understand them, but we need to try to understand them, because young people as well are trying to understand themselves. Like Naomi and myself, okay, we understand ourselves a little bit better now because, you know, we have experience, life experience, and we can recognize different things. We're probably more at peace than we were when we were younger. But young people, like all of these things, imagine, and they don't have that life experience yet. Others are obviously more mature than others and sort of understand it quicker, but we need to try and understand them because they're trying to understand themselves, and it can be difficult. So we've got some other tips as well, Naomi, about what to do.
Plus, on the top of all, the extreme sensitivity. This is very hard to handle if you are extremely sensitive, intuitive, empathic, because you perceive everything. So you need to have such a balanced emotional intelligence. And it's a challenge, definitely. I have a friend, he used to tell me, at that time when I was 20, I was swimming in a sea of emotion and dramas. And it's like all my life, I was just moving with the waves of my emotion, and it was unbearable. And I can understand because extremely sensitive. So tip number 1.
Be on their side, not against them. So, you know, especially like we said, they're trying to understand themselves, try to understand them, try to help them, try to support them. You might not always like, you know, as the teacher or the parent, you might not always like who they are or what they do, but within reason, it is your job to love them or to support them, depending whether you're the teacher or the parent, you know, and that's really important because it will help them to be more well-developed human beings, and that helps our society as well. It's difficult though, sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes as a parent, what's wrong with you? I don't agree. No, don't do that. Don't go to the party. Don't drink. Don't take drugs. Don't. It's like, well, it's always like a wall. They will go next to you and they eat a wall. No. They go next to you and they eat a loving person, and we are trying to help each other, but not imposed anything. Or
So
at my time, I do say my time, my epoch.
Back in my time,
Back in my time, it was like that. This is annoying. That we are not in the past century. It's just get a little bit update. Could be good as well.
And by no means we're not telling you to tell your children to go and drink or take drugs. No, but
yeah. By the way,
if you say no, there are more effective ways to communicate your feelings and your experience and what you think is best for them.
Because no is based on fear. So be careful with it. Oh, my mom is afraid I will drink on Sunday. So she's my mom, she's right. So I have to drink on Sunday to have the a wish fulfilled. So what I mean? The self-prophecy things.
So the Pygmalion effect, which we'll see in the next slide.
Yeah.
So we talked about this earlier in the series. And so we need, you know, young people need to feel that we believe in them, their teachers, their parents, because that will have an effect, like a self-prophesizing effect. Another way of saying it is, you know, like if you tell them they can do it, it's most likely that will happen. On the other hand, if you say you're not going to achieve that, it's more likely that they will fail. You will like confirm that before that happens. It's a psychological effect that we looked at in earlier in the series, and you should definitely check it out because it's true. And like Naomi mentioned before as well, there's also that kind of like reverse psychology. If my mom tells me not to do this, then I'm going to do it. It almost like you saying don't do this will make it happen. And we can see that.
You have to be careful.
But also,
I don't fall, so I have to fall.
But if you say you can do this, it's going to be a lot easier for them to do it. That will also be a self-fulfilling prophecy. You can do this. I believe in you. Young people need to feel like they're understood and listened to us, but they can be very sensitive about this as well. More short, effective study, active meditation, non-violent communication. So they learn that from an early age, they're able to use it, and they also receive that maybe from their teachers and parents. So we have productive communication, the ability to learn different languages, like we've looked, that's a great tool for peace. Sports, to be physical, to feel good, going back to the blue pedal. Technology, so technologically literate. They need to do, not just be told, but they also need to do, and not have the fear or the risk of just trying something as well. To travel. So maybe, is there anything you want to say about those points, Naomi, before we look at the last one?
No, that's good. The languages caught my attention. Sometimes they are so good with languages. Or they say, I want to learn this language. And then in 6 months, they talk like Korean, strange language, strangers, like that doesn't exist anymore. I knew a guy he was in Germany. The mom is from Croatia. He knew a bunch of languages, the famous dead languages. And even the moms, she had no clue what he was studying. And he was doing all that. And she was telling me, he's just doing all these languages. He should do something more useful. But this guy has this talent. So he has to be supported. Not amazing. Again, my kids. Oh my God. This mother. I was in Catalonia. I was in Catalonia in Spain, Barcelona.
Barcelona, right?
Yeah. And we spent 15 days. And all of a sudden, I hear 2 kids talking Catalan behind me. And I turned over, it was my kids. And I said, you speak Catalan? Yes, ma'am. In 15 days, they were at least able to maintain a simple conversation. And I just knew 2 words. No, really amazing. Okay. And
to be loved the way they are. Right, Naomi?
And if you don't know what to do, just love. And remember Shishida's quote, if you love your children, you already educate them. That's the rule, golden rule. And I was impressed by this quote of the Dalai Lama.
We said, if every 8-year-old in the world is taught meditation, we will eliminate violence from the world within 1 generation. So that's a pretty incredible idea.
1 generation. And if you're not like to be still, you have a bunch of active meditation, and you can always use them as well, especially if you are a little bit not hyperactive, but active.
So if sitting still and meditating is difficult for you, this active meditation, and you can check these resources out on our website, like we've said throughout the series, there are loads and loads and loads of free resources on our website. We've got the whole series of videos. So we've just finished the 25 videos of the Education 3000 Level 1 series, co-recreating education. We want to do it together, so we invite you to like the channel, to leave a comment below, to contact us on Facebook or via email. All of these are below in the description. And Naomi, thank you to you for sharing all of your wonderful experience, your ideas, your vision, your proposal to make education, locally and internationally, something that we can make better and help to develop a better society, happier people, happier children, young people. So thank you very much, Naomi, first of all, and everybody at Education 3000. And thank you to you who have been watching at home for sharing this experience with us. We hope that it's been inspiring, useful, and that you get in touch with us, like we said, because we want to do this together. It will be so much better if we do this together, or we encourage you to do it with your local schools, communities, in your family, whatever. Right, Naomi?
That's it. Thank you to all the teams. Thank you to you, Dave, and thank you to everybody to change education around the world. But one education, a different one, based on love, solidarity, peace. It's going to be a beautiful world. Thank you so much.
Perfect.
Maybe we will have a surprise, number 26.
So there's going to be one more little video just to finish off the series. So stay tuned for that. Please check it out. And also, in probably about a month or two, or a little bit later in the year, we'll be working on the level 2 series of co-recreating education, in which we'll look at some more of these very interesting themes related to education and a better society. So thanks, everybody. And
thank you.
see you in the next
care.
video on the next series.